On Mother's Day, a widowed millionaire did something unexpected. He took a bouquet of flowers to the kitchen of a restaurant, the chosen one, a simple cook, without knowing why. But what she did next, no one could have ever predicted. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. The aroma of fresh pasta and tomato sauce filled the air at Antica Cucina, an Italian restaurant located in one of the city's most elegant neighborhoods. In the kitchen, Clara performed her daily dance between pots and pans with the precision of a maestro. Her nimble fingers molded the ravioli dough, while her mind wandered to dreams yet to be realized. The Sunday morning was sure to be busy. It was Mother's Day, and the restaurant was fully booked. Clara adjusted her flour-stained apron and checked once more the special menu she had created for the occasion. Each dish carried a bit of its history, especially the apple and cinnamon tea, a recipe she had kept since her childhood in the small village where she grew up. Between one preparation and another, Clara allowed herself a moment of reverie, thinking about the recipe book hidden in her dressing room drawer. It contained all the creations that would one day be part of her own cafe. It was her personal treasure, her hidden project, as she used to call it. Pages and pages filled with dreams in the form of recipes, decorations thought out in every detail, and a concept that went beyond gastronomy. It was about reliving memories through flavors. The sound of the doorbell brought her back to reality. Through the reflection of the kitchen window, Clara watched Leo, her regular Sunday morning customer, arrive. As always, he was impeccably dressed in his well-cut suit, but it was his serene expression that caught her attention the most. Beside him, little Sophia, his 7-year-old daughter, was holding his hand gently. What surprised Clara that morning was the modest bouquet of white daisies and blue forget-me-nots that he carried in his other hand. Sophia was different from the other children who frequented the restaurant. While most of them barely touched their food, preferring to use tablets and cell phones, she savored every bite as if she could discover secrets in the flavors. Clara had already noticed how the girl's eyes lit up when she tried her creations, especially the apple and cinnamon tea that she always ordered at the end of meals. The maitre d' led father and daughter to their usual table near the window that overlooked the restaurant's side garden. Clara watched them discreetly as she finished preparing the service. There was something different in the air that morning, a kind of gentle electricity that made her heart beat a little faster. Leo had to leave for a few minutes to answer a work call, even though it was Sunday, the price of being the owner of one of the largest real estate networks in the region. Sophia was left alone at the table, swinging her legs and watching the movement in the restaurant with her curious and attentive eyes. It was then that something unexpected happened. Little Sophia stood up from her chair, holding the bouquet her father had brought. With determined steps, she approached the counter that separated the living room from the kitchen. Clara, who was finishing a batch of bread, noticed the movement and approached, intrigued. "These flowers are for you," Sophia said, holding out the bouquet with a shy smile. "Because when I eat your food, I see colors and hear music. Especially in your apple and cinnamon tea. It's like I can feel a warm hug, just like I imagine a mother's hug would be." Clara felt her heart skip a beat. The girl's words, so sincere and profound, touched a sensitive chord within her. The rest of the kitchen seemed to disappear for a moment, and all she could see were those childish eyes that seemed to see far beyond appearances. The maitre d', Mr. Giuseppe, witnessed the scene and, breaking all restaurant protocols, invited Clara to sit at the table with the customers for a few minutes. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the bouquet, and her eyes were filled with emotion. Leo, who was returning at that moment, stopped for a moment, surprised by the scene he found. "Papa, I gave the flowers to Clara because she makes food. That has the color of hugs," Sophia explained, with the simplicity typical of children. Leo smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his usually melancholy eyes. Clara noticed how little wrinkles formed at the corners of those eyes when he smiled like that. "Sophia has a special gift," Leo explained, sitting down at the table. "She can associate flavors with colors and sensations. Doctors call it synesthesia. Ever since she was little, she said her food has different colors than any other she's ever tasted." Clara sat up straight in her chair, still holding the bouquet carefully. "This is the first time anyone has described my food in such a magical way," she replied, looking fondly at Sophia. The girl smiled, revealing a small window between her front teeth. The conversation flowed naturally, as if the moment had been carefully orchestrated by fate. Sophia spoke enthusiastically about her synesthetic experiences, describing how Clara's risotto was the color of a sunset, and how her special tea sounded like soft piano music. "Could you join us after work?" Leo asked, surprising himself with the sudden invitation. Sophia loves visiting the botanical gardens on Sundays, and today the weather is perfect for a walk. Clara hesitated for a moment. Her shift ended at 4 in the afternoon, and she usually devoted Sunday nights to working on her secret cafe project. But there was something in Sophia's eyes, a mixture of hope and affection, that made it impossible to refuse. "It would be a pleasure," Clara replied, feeling a pleasant warmth in her chest. The rest of the day passed in a blur of intense activity in the kitchen. Clara coordinated her team with her usual efficiency, but her mind occasionally returned to the invitation to go out. At 4 o'clock sharp, after changing out of her uniform into a simple dress she kept in the changing room, she found father and daughter waiting for her at the entrance to the restaurant. The botanical garden was just a few blocks away. The way Sophia held Clara's hand naturally, as if she did it every day. The little girl bounced between the two adults, pointing at the flowers and telling stories about each one. "That's Mommy's place," Sophia said, pointing to a particularly pretty patch of wildflowers. Clara felt the air grow thicker, realizing they had reached a delicate moment. Leo ran his hand through his hair. A gesture she had already noticed was a sign of his uneasiness. "Marina loved this garden," he explained, his soft voice carrying a note of longing. "She came here every day when she was pregnant with Sophia. She said every flower had a story to tell." Sophia let go of Clara's hand and ran toward a particular flower bed. "Look, Clara, they're just like the ones in your bouquet." The coincidence made Clara come closer to get a better look. Her heart skipped a beat when she recognized the flowers. They weren't just your average daisies and forget-me-nots. They were a particular variety that she had only seen in one place before her home village. "These flowers," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly, "they grow naturally only in a specific region of the countryside, in a small village called the Valley of Flowers." Leo looked at her in astonishment. "Marina was from there. She insisted on bringing some seedlings when we moved to the city. How did you—" "I was born there too," Clara added, feeling as if the world had momentarily stopped spinning. The discovery of their common origin created an atmosphere of instant intimacy between Clara and Leo. Sitting on a wooden bench near the flower bed, they began to share memories of the Valley of Flowers, each word weaving an invisible web of connections between their pasts. "I lived near the church," Clara said, her eyes lost in memory. "My grandmother had a small bakery where I learned my first cooking secrets. The smell of fresh bread would wake up the whole neighborhood." Leo smiled, recognizing the details. "Rosa's bakery, the one on the corner with the stained glass windows." When Clara nodded, he continued, "Marina bought bread there every morning before school. She always said that place had magic." Sophia, who was playing nearby picking small flowers, approached with interest. "Was Grandma Rosa your grandmother, Clara? Daddy has old photos of the valley, and there's a white-haired lady in the bakery." Clara felt her heart race. It was as if the universe was revealing piece by piece a puzzle that had always existed without her knowing. "Yes, it was my grandmother. She left when I was 16, and soon after, I came to the big city to try my luck as a cook." "Why did you choose to be a cook?" Sophia asked, sitting between the two on the bench, her little legs dangling in the air. Clara picked one of the flowers Sophia had picked, turning it gently between her fingers. "Because in the kitchen, I could create little moments of happiness for people. Each dish is like a story that I tell through its flavors. My grandmother always said that cooking is a form of love." Leo watched Clara with growing admiration. There was a delicacy in her way of speaking, an authenticity that he had not seen in anyone for a long time. "And did you manage to make all your dreams come true in the kitchen?" he asked, noticing a different sparkle in her eyes when he brought up the subject. Clara hesitated for a moment, thinking of her hidden recipe book, of the nights she would stay up planning every detail of her dream cafe. "Not all of them, and yet," she replied with a shy smile. "I have a personal project, something I've been planning for years." "What project?" Sophia asked excitedly, her eyes shining with curiosity. "It's a secret," Clara replied, tickling the girl. "But maybe one day I'll tell you." The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink that were reflected in the flowers in the garden. Sophia had fallen asleep in her father's lap, exhausted after an afternoon of discoveries and games. Leo adjusted the girl in his arms carefully so as not to wake her. "Would you like to have dinner with us next Friday?" he invited, his voice soft so as not to disturb his daughter's sleep. "Sophia would be very happy, and well, it would be a pleasure to get to know more about you." Clara felt her cheeks flush slightly. "I'd love to," she replied, surprising herself with how naturally the words came out. "Can I bring a special dessert?" "Sure," Leo smiled. "Sophia will love it. She always says your desserts taste like a fairy's hug." As they walked back, Clara realized that that afternoon had changed something inside her. It was as if an invisible knot had been untied, allowing her heart to open to possibilities she had never considered before. The next morning, when Clara arrived at the restaurant, she found a small envelope under her door. Inside was a drawing that Sophia had made. 3 people holding hands in front of a garden of colorful flowers. In the corner of the paper, in childish handwriting, was written, "For Clara, who makes food with the color of love." The week flew by amidst cooking and increasingly vivid dreams about her coffee. On Friday, Clara spent her afternoon off baking a special cinnamon cake, a recipe she had created inspired by memories of her grandmother's bakery. The sweet, comforting aroma filled her small apartment as she got ready for dinner. She arrived at Leo's house promptly at 7 o'clock, carrying the still-warm cake in a box decorated with ribbons. The residence was elegant, but without the ostentation one might expect from a successful businessman. Sophia greeted her at the door with a tight hug, wearing a flowery dress that made her look like a little garden fairy. "You really came," the girl exclaimed, pulling Clara by the hand. "Daddy is finishing cooking. He makes the best pesto pasta in the world, after yours, of course." The interior of the house surprised Clara. Instead of the formal environment she had imagined, she found a cozy space with walls covered in children's drawings and family photographs. Books occupied practically every available surface, from literary classics to colorful children's volumes. Leo appeared in the living room, drying his hands on a dish towel, dressed in jeans and a simple shirt. He looked younger this way, more relaxed than his suit-wearing self from the restaurant. "Welcome to our organized mess," he smiled, hugging her briefly. "I brought you a surprise," Clara said, handing over the cake box. Sophia immediately approached, curious. "I can smell cinnamon!" the girl exclaimed, closing her eyes. "And it's the color of warm gold like the sun rising." During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. Leo revealed himself to be an excellent amateur cook, explaining that he learned to cook out of necessity after being alone with Sophia. The pasta was truly delicious, and Clara was full of compliments, causing a discreet blush to appear on his face. "How do you manage it all?" Clara asked, observing the harmonious dynamic between father and daughter. "The business, the home, being a single father?" Leo paused, his fork suspended in mid-air for a moment. "It's not always easy," he admitted. "But Sophia is my priority. I've learned to organize my life around her. Business can wait, but childhood can't." Sophia, who was concentrating on her plate, looked up. "Sometimes Dad works late at the office, but he always comes to say goodnight to me, and on the weekends we do a lot of things together." After dinner, while Leo made tea in the kitchen, Sophia led Clara to her room. It was a charming space with walls painted in soft tones and a small children's library. On a special shelf was a collection of colored stones and dried flowers pressed into glass. "Mom collected stones," Sophia explained, picking up a purple amethyst. "And now I collect them too. Each one has a different story." Clara sat on the edge of the bed, touched by the maturity with which the girl spoke about her mother. "And what's the story with this one?" she asked, pointing to the amethyst. "This one is special," Sophia smiled. "Daddy says Mommy found it the day she found out I was in her belly. She said the stone was the same color as the flowers in the valley." Leo appeared in the doorway with a tray of tea, his eyes softening at the sight of the two of them together. "Bedtime story?" he asked, setting the tray down on a small table. "Can Clara read to me today?" Sophia asked, already running to get her favorite book. That night, sitting on Sophia's bed with a book of fairy tales on her lap, Clara felt something different grow in her chest. It was a feeling of belonging that she hadn't experienced in a long time. The girl's voice, sleepy after the third story, whispered something that made her heart stop for a second. "You could stay with us forever, Clara. It would be perfect." The following Monday, Clara arrived at Antica Cucina earlier than usual. Her hands still tingled with the memory of the storybook she had held in Sophia's room, and her heart held the echo of those innocent words about staying forever. She was so distracted by her thoughts that she almost didn't notice Mr. Giuseppe, the maitre d', standing in the kitchen doorway with a worried expression. "Clara, dear, could you come to the conference room? Mr. Antonelli needs to speak to the entire team," he said, his voice carrying a tone Clara had never heard before. Mr. Antonelli, the owner of the restaurant, rarely came in the morning. When Clara entered the room, she found all the staff already assembled, their faces tense and expectant. The owner of the restaurant, a man in his 60s, was standing by the window, his hands restlessly adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. "My dears," he began, his voice breaking, "for the past 20 years this restaurant has been my life. Each of you has become part of my family. But," he paused, taking a deep breath, "sometimes we have to make difficult decisions. I have received an offer that I cannot refuse. Antica Cucina has been sold to an international fast food chain." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the muffled sound of a few sobs. Clara felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. This restaurant was more than just her place of work. It was where her dreams had begun to take shape. "You will have 30 days until the final closing," Mr. Antonelli continued, his voice shaking. "You will all receive excellent letters of recommendation and a generous financial compensation." "I know it is not enough, but—" Clara barely heard the rest of the meeting. Her mind wandered through memories of the past 5 years. Her first day in the kitchen, the night spent developing special recipes, the smiles of her customers, the first compliment from the local food critic. And now, most recently, Sundays with Leo and Sophia. After the meeting, as everyone dispersed into whispering groups, Clara made her way to her workstation. She opened the drawer where she kept her recipe book and leafed through it slowly. Each page contained not just cooking instructions, but pieces of her dreams, sketches of the coffee she had always wanted to have. "Maybe it's a sign," she murmured to herself, caressing the worn pages of her notebook. Her hidden project had always seemed like a distant dream, certain in its impossibility. Now, with the imminent change, it was taking on the appearance of real possibility. For the rest of the morning, Clara worked automatically, her precise movements masking the storm of thoughts in her mind. It was only during her lunch break that she discovered something intriguing. While searching for an old cookbook in the restaurant's library, a yellowed envelope fell out from between the pages. Carefully, Clara opened it. Inside were several letters, all written in delicate handwriting and addressed to my little Sophia. Her heart skipped a beat when she recognized the sender's name, Marina, Leo's wife. Her hands were shaking as she read the first letter. "My sweet Sophia, if you are reading this, it means that I could not be by your side as I always dreamed. But I want you to know that every moment I spent waiting for your arrival was filled with infinite love. I am so afraid to leave you alone in this world. But something tells me that one day someone with gentle hands and a firm soul will come to take care of you and your father. Someone who will understand that true love can be born in the most unexpected places." Clara sat there on the library floor, the letters spread out on her lap. Silent tears ran down her face as she read. Every word Marina had left for the daughter she had barely had time to know. It was as if fate was weaving a plot much greater than she could have imagined. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Clara. Marina's letters weighed on her conscience. Should she give them to Leo? How would she explain finding them? And most importantly, how would she deal with the growing feeling that she was somehow fulfilling the dying wish of this woman she had never met? The restaurant was still open, but there was a melancholy in the air that not even the most delicious aromas could dispel. Regular customers, upon hearing the news of the closure, expressed their sadness with affectionate words and a few discreet tears. One particularly hectic morning, Clara was surprised by Sophia entering the kitchen alone, still wearing her school uniform. The girl had red eyes and a tear-stained face. "Sophia, what happened? Where is your father?" Clara asked in alarm, putting aside the dough she was preparing. "I ran away from school," Sophia sobbed, running into Clara's arms. "I needed to smell your apple and cinnamon tea. It's the only thing that calms me down when I'm sad like this." Clara led the girl to the small office of the employees, away from prying eyes. While she prepared the special tea, she called Leo, who was already on his way, desperately looking for his daughter. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" Clara asked softly, sitting down next to Sophia. The girl held the teacup in both hands, as if seeking comfort in its warmth. "Daddy's going to have to move to another city," she whispered. "I heard him talking on the phone about an important promotion, but I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you, Clara." Clara's heart sank. Before she could respond, Leo arrived, panting and visibly worried. Seeing his daughter safe, his shoulders visibly relaxed. "Sophia, my love, you've had me so worried," he said, hugging his daughter tightly. "I'm sorry, Papa," Sophia murmured against his chest. "But I don't want to move. Please, can't we stay?" Leo exchanged a meaningful look with Clara, who understood the silent request, and left them alone. Through the small window of the office, she watched them talking, father and daughter united in a tight embrace. Later, after Sophia had been taken home by Leo, Clara found a note left by him. "Can we talk? Tonight, after your shift. There's a quiet cafe around the corner." The rest of the day passed in slow motion. When she finally arrived at the designated cafe, Clara found Leo already waiting, an untouched cup of coffee in front of him. He looked tired, but there was determination in his eyes. "I've been offered the position of president of the company's northern branch," he began bluntly. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it means moving in 3 months. Clara felt her heart sink, but she kept her composure. "Sophia doesn't seem too happy about the idea." "No," Leo sighed. "And to be honest, I'm not sure either. In the past few months since we met you—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Clara, you've brought something back into our lives that I thought was lost forever. Sophia smiles more. Her nightmares have lessened, and she finally has someone to share her unique way of seeing the world with." Clara felt tears forming in her eyes, but she held them back. "Leo, Wait," he interrupted her gently. "There's one more thing you should know. The old bookstore building, the one on the corner of the main square, Sarah, it's for sale. And yesterday when I walked by, I couldn't help but notice how perfect it would be for a cafe. A cozy place, with special recipes and handcrafted decor." Clara held her breath, her heart pounding. How could he know about her dream? "Sophia told me about your secret project," he continued, a small smile on his lips. "She said she saw your recipe book once when you were distracted at the restaurant. And you know what? I think it's time to get some dreams off the ground." Clara spent that night awake, Leo's words echoing in her mind. The old bookstore building had always caught her attention. Large windows that would let in natural light, a perfect location in the heart of the city, and a vintage charm that would perfectly match her vision for the cafe. The next morning, before her shift at the restaurant, she walked over. The rising sun painted the dusty window panes golden, and Clara could almost picture it. Rustic wooden tables strategically arranged, shelves of old books lining the walls, the pastry counter displaying her special creations, and the aroma of fresh coffee and freshly baked bread filling the room. His reverie was interrupted by a familiar voice. "I knew I'd find you here." It was Sophia, still in her unicorn pajamas, covered by a coat that was too big for her. Leo was right behind her, carrying 2 cups of coffee to go and a hot chocolate. "Sophia insisted on coming as soon as she woke up," he explained, handing one of the coffees to Clara. "She said she had a dream about this place." What kind of dream? Clara asked, accepting the coffee with a grateful smile. Sophia pressed her nose against the glass of the storefront, her breath fogging the glass. I dreamed it was all colorful inside, with flowers everywhere, and there was a special table by the window where people could sit and tell stories while drinking their magical apple and cinnamon tea. Clara felt her heart skip a beat. This was exactly how she had envisioned the reading area space in her drafts, a cozy little corner where people could feel at home. "Have you thought of a name for the cafe yet?" Leo asked, his eyes fixed on Clara with an intensity that made her blush. "Actually," she hesitated, taking her recipe book from her bag. On the last pages was a draft of what would be the establishment's sign, Memories and Flavors, Cafe and Library. "It's perfect," Sophia exclaimed, jumping up and down with excitement. "Because every recipe of yours has a memory, doesn't it? Like the tea that tastes like Grandma Rosa's house." Leo smiled, watching the interaction between the two. "Clara, I know this is a huge decision, but—" He paused, taking a deep breath. "What if I told you I could help make it happen?" Clara felt her hands tremble slightly. "Leo, I couldn't accept." "It's not charity," he interrupted her gently. "It's an investment. In you, in your talent, in your dream. Besides," he glanced at Sophia, who was now drawing flowers on the fogged glass, "it would be an excellent excuse not to—" "I accept that transfer." The sun was already high when they finally left the place. Clara needed to rush to the restaurant, but her mind was elsewhere. The possibilities danced in her head, the recipes she could create, the events she could organize, the stories this space could witness. On the way to work, Sophia held her hand and whispered, "Did you know Mommy loved to read? Daddy said she always dreamed of owning a bookstore with a cafe where people could feel at home." Clara stopped walking, suddenly remembering the letters in her purse. There, in the middle of the busy sidewalk, she made a decision. That night after work, she would tell Leo about Marina's letters. He deserved to know, and maybe this was just another sign that some dreams are too big to be kept in secret notebooks. That evening, after work, Clara met Leo at the same cafe as the night before. Her hands shook slightly as she held the envelope containing Marina's letters. She had reread each one during her lunch break, and now the words seemed to burn into her consciousness. "Did something happen?" Leo asked, noticing her uneasiness. "You seemed distant all day, even when Sophia and I stopped by for lunch." Clara took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I found something at the restaurant," she began, her voice soft. Between the pages of an old cookbook, she slid the envelope across the table. Leo frowned as he recognized the handwriting on the envelope. His hands shook as he opened the first letter, and Clara watched as his eyes filled with tears as he read it. "She always thought of everything," he whispered after a long silence. "Marina had this gift of seeing beyond the present, of preparing the ground for a future that she would not see." Clara reached across the table, gently touching Leo's fingers. "She loved you both in an extraordinary way." "You know what's amazing?" he said, rereading parts of the letter. "This part here about someone with gentle hands and a firm soul. It's exactly how Sophia described you the first day she tasted your special tea." A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only with the soft sound of the cafe's ambient music and the occasional clink of cups. Leo carefully placed the letters back into the envelope, his movements deliberate, as if handling something precious. "Clara," he began, his voice carrying a different emotion now, "do you believe in fate?" She thought for a moment, remembering the Valley of Flowers, her grandmother's bakery, the coincidences that had brought them together. "I believe that some stories are written long before we know we are part of them. Ever since Marina left," Leo continued, "I've closed myself off to the possibility of finding love again. I've focused on Sophia, on work, on keeping everything going. But then—" He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "Then you came along with your magic tea and your stories of the valley, and something changed." Clara felt her heart race. "Leo, You don't have to say anything right now," he interrupted her gently. "I just want you to know that the coffee proposal isn't just a business investment. It's my way of saying that I want to be a part of your story, if you'll let me." At that moment, Leo's cell phone rang. It was Sophia's nanny, telling her that the girl had woken up from a nightmare and was asking for them. Without hesitation, Clara grabbed her bag. "Come on," she said, standing up. "I think she needs a cup of that special tea." On the way to Leo's house, they walked hand in hand, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The night was clear and the stars seemed to twinkle in approval above their heads. When they arrived, they found Sophia wrapped in her favorite blanket on the living room couch, her eyes still wet with tears. As soon as she saw Clara, her face lit up. "You came," the girl exclaimed, running to hug her. "I dreamed that you were leaving, that the cafe would never exist, that—" "Shh," Clara soothed her, stroking her hair. "I'm here, and you know what? I think it's time to make that special tea and tell you a very important story about a girl from the Valley of Flowers who wrote love letters to her little daughter." Sophia looked curiously at her father, who nodded with an emotional smile. As Clara prepared tea in the kitchen, she could hear father and daughter talking quietly in the living room, their voices blending together like a familiar melody that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of emotions and preparations. During the day, Clara continued her work at Antica Cucina, taking advantage of every moment to perfect her special recipes. At night, she met with Leo to plan the renovation of the old bookstore building, which was slowly beginning to take on a new life. Sophia became a constant presence at these gatherings, always carrying her sketchbook, where she recorded her ideas for the cafe. Her suggestions, although coming from a childish imagination, were often surprising in their sensitivity. "We could have a whole wall of just pictures of the Valley of Flowers," she suggested one evening, showing a colorful drawing. "And each table could be named after a different flower." Clara and Leo exchanged knowing glances. The idea was perfect, a way to honor their heritage and create a welcoming environment. Leo ran his hand through his daughter's hair proudly. "How about we frame some of Mom's letters?" Sophia continued, her voice soft. "The pretty parts about love and dreams. That way she'll be part of the coffee, too." Clara felt her eyes well up with tears. Ever since the night they had told Sophia about the letters, the girl had shown surprising maturity in dealing with her mother's memories. It was as if Marina's words had created a bridge between the past and the present, allowing new bonds to be formed without erasing the old ones. One afternoon, while supervising the installation of shelves in the cafe, Clara received an unexpected call. It was from a famous food critic who often frequented Antica Cucina. "I hear you're opening your own place," he said, "and that the restaurant is on its last legs. How about a special report? We can tell the story of the transition, the birth of a new dream." Clara hesitated for a moment, but something in her heart told her that the time was right. "It would be an honor," she replied, "but on one condition. I want the article to come out only after the inauguration. There are some surprises that need to be kept secret." One of these surprises was kept in a special box in her apartment. For weeks, Clara had been working in secret on a handmade book, gathering not only her most special recipes, but also stories from the Valley of Flowers, old photographs of her grandmother's bakery, and selected excerpts from Marina's letters, the latter carefully chosen with Leo's permission. The book would be the heart of the cafe, available for customers to leaf through as they savored their creations. Each page had been handcrafted with love and dedication, as a tribute to all the stories that had led up to that moment. One evening, after another day of preparations, Clara found a small package on her table in the restaurant. Inside was an old music box, the kind that plays when you open the lid. A note from Leo accompanied the gift. "I found this box among Marina's old things. She brought it from the valley and always said its melody had the power to make dreams grow. Sophia thinks it would be perfect for coffee, to play while you make your special tea. Love, Elle." Clara opened the box carefully. The soft melody that filled the air was familiar, an old Vale song her grandmother used to hum as she baked bread. The tears came without warning, but they were different now. They weren't tears of longing or fear, but of gratitude for all, the paths that had led her here. That same night, while organizing the final details of the handmade book, Clara added a new page. In it, she wrote about a music box, that had crossed generations to find its place in a cafe that didn't even exist yet, but was already full of stories to tell. The last day of Antica Cucina arrived with a bittersweet mix of emotions. Clara had prepared a special menu, bringing together the dishes most loved by regular customers. The restaurant was packed, and each table told a different story of moments shared there over the years. Leo and Sophia sat at their usual table by the window, but today was different. Sophia was wearing a special floral dress, and her eyes were shining with anticipation. Leo, elegant as always, looked nervous, constantly adjusting the collar of his shirt. At the end of the service, Mr. Antonelli gathered all the employees and customers present for a special toast. Clara was in the kitchen, finishing the last batch of bread when she heard her name being called. "Clara, dear," Mr. Antonelli began, his voice cracking, "you've turned this kitchen into a magical place over the past few years. But now it's time for you to spread that magic into your own space." Clara looked at Leo in surprise, who was smiling discreetly. The restaurant owner continued. "Yes, we all know about your new cafe. That's why I wanted to give you this." He held out a gold envelope. "These are all the special recipes my family has kept for generations. Some came from Italy with my grandfather, others were created here. Now they're yours." Clara received the envelope with trembling hands, unable to hold back her tears. Mr. Antonelli hugged her fatherly, whispering, "Use them wisely, cara mia, and don't forget to invite us to the opening." As the last customer left and the lights began to dim, Clara walked around the kitchen one last time, touching every utensil, every surface, silently giving thanks for all the lessons she had learned there. That was when she noticed Leo standing in the doorway watching her. "Ready to go?" he asked softly. "I have something I want to show you." Clara followed him to the car, where Sophia was already asleep in the back seat, hugging her sketchbook. They drove in silence to the building where the future cafe would be. The stars shone brightly in the sky, as if they wanted to be part of that moment. "Close your eyes," Leo urged, leading her by the hand to the entrance. When Clara opened her eyes, her breath stopped for a moment. The space had been transformed. The shelves were already installed, some with carefully selected old books. The rustic wooden tables occupied their planned places, each with a small vase of flowers from the valley. On the main wall, a mosaic of photographs told the story of the Valley of Flowers, Rosa's bakery, and discreetly, some images of Marina. "Sophia and I have been working on this for the past few days," Leo explained, his voice soft. "We wanted it to be a surprise." In the center of the cafe, a special table caught Clara's attention. It was different from the others, made of older wood and delicate carvings. On it sat a music box and a book she recognized immediately, her recipe book, now transformed into a beautiful leather-bound volume. "I had copies of your book made," Leo said, noticing her surprised look. "Every table will have one. And this one," he picked up the original volume, opening it to the last page. "This one is special." Clara looked at the page and her heart stopped. There, written in Sophia's handwriting, was a new chapter, the story of our cafe. And below it, a simple question that carried all the weight of the universe. "Do you want to be part of our family forever?" Leo knelt down, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside, a delicate ring with a stone that resembled the color of the flowers of the valley gleamed in the soft light of the cafe. Clara felt the world spin around her as she stared at the ring in front of her. Leo's words echoed in her ears, mixing with the soft tinkling of the music box that was still playing in the background. Before she could respond, a movement at the door caught her attention. Sophia was there, still sleepy, but with a smile that lit up her entire face. In her hands, she held a small bouquet of flowers from the valley, the same ones that had started the whole story in the restaurant. "I tried to stay awake in the car," the girl said, coming closer, "but I ended up falling asleep. Daddy promised he would wake me up for this special moment." Clara knelt down to Sophia's level, tears streaming freely down her face now. The girl handed her the bouquet and whispered, "Did you know that these flowers only grow when they find the right place? Grandma Rosa told me that in a dream." Leo, still kneeling, gently took Clara's hand. "So what do you say? Do you accept to be part of this family officially?" Clara looked around, at the cafe that was beginning to come to life, at Sophia with her hopeful eyes, at Leo who was watching her with such love. Her entire journey here, from the days in her grandmother's bakery to the years at Antica Cucina, seemed to make sense now. "Yes," she replied, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Sophia let out a little cry of joy and threw herself into their arms, creating a collective hug that seemed to contain all the love in the world. The music box continued its soft melody, as if blessing that moment. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Between the final preparations for the cafe and the first plans for the wedding, Clara barely had time to breathe, but every moment was filled with a happiness she had never experienced before. One afternoon, while organizing the last shelves of the cafe, Clara found Sophia sitting in a corner, absorbed in her sketchbook. When she approached, she saw that the girl was creating a new drawing for the children's menu. "What are you drawing?" "Dear," he asked, sitting down beside her. "It's a surprise." Sophia replied, quickly covering the drawing with her hands. "But can I tell you a secret? Mum appeared in my dream again last night." Clara felt a soft shiver run down her spine. "Really? And what did she say?" "She was smiling so much," Sophia continued, her eyes shining. "She said she was happy because her letters had finally found their destination, and she also said that—" The girl paused dramatically. "That you make the best apple and cinnamon tea she's ever tasted in heaven." Clara laughed, though her eyes were teary. "Your mother seems to have been a very special person." "Yes," Sophia agreed, returning to her drawing. "And now I have 2 special mothers to love." That night, after Sophia went to bed, Clara and Leo sat on the porch of his house, now about to become their home. The starry sky seemed especially bright, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers from the garden. "I found this today," Leo said, handing Clara a yellowed envelope. "It's the last letter from Marina that was kept. I think you should read it." Carefully, Clara opened the envelope and began to read. "My love, if you are reading this letter, it means that your heart is finally ready to love again. I don't know who she is, but I know that she must be someone special to have won over you and our Sophia. I want you to know that this makes me happy. Love does not diminish when it is shared. It grows, multiplies, creates new gardens in lands that we thought would be empty forever." Leo intertwined his fingers with Clara's as she read, and together they gazed out at the starry night, sharing a silence filled with promise for the future. The week of the cafe's opening arrived, with a special energy in the air. Clara had decided to hold a 2-stage opening. First, an intimate event for close friends and family only, and then, the following day, the grand opening for the public. On the morning of the private event, Clara arrived at the cafe early. The sun was still rising when she opened the doors, letting the golden morning light flood the room. Every detail had been carefully planned. The tables were decorated with small arrangements of flowers from the valley. The books were neatly lined on the shelves, and the aroma of fresh bread was already beginning to perfume the air. Sophia had insisted on helping with the preparations, arriving with Leo soon after, carrying a mysterious box that he refused to show Clara. "It's a special surprise," the girl repeated every time Clara tried to peek at the contents. The first guests began arriving in the early afternoon. Mr. Antonelli and his wife were the first, bringing an antique copper kettle that he said had belonged to his great-grandmother in Italy. The Antica Cucina staff followed, each carrying a small gift or memory to share. "Now," Sophia suddenly announced, rushing to retrieve her mystery box. With Leo's help, she hung a painting covered in delicate fabric on the main wall of the cafe. When the fabric was removed, Clara brought her hands to her mouth, overcome with emotion. It was a huge collage made of photographs, newspaper clippings, Sophia's drawings, and small objects. In the center was an old photograph of Rosa's bakery, next to a recent photo of the cafe. Around it, forming a sort of timeline, were important moments: Clara's first day at Antica Cucina, Sophia tasting the special tea for the first time, the bouquet of flowers from Vale, and even a recent photo of the 3 of them together. "It's our story," Sophia explained proudly, Daddy helped me put it all together, and look." She pointed to an empty space in the bottom right corner of the frame. "I left this space for the wedding photos." The guests gathered around to admire the work, each finding a different detail to comment on. Mr. Giuseppe, the former head waiter, wiped away a discreet tear as he acknowledged the moment he had broken protocol by inviting Clara to sit with Leo and Sophia. Clara took advantage of a quieter moment to go up to the small improvised stage they had set up. Marina's music box began to play softly in the background as she picked up the microphone. "First, I want to thank everyone for being here today," she began, her voice cracking with emotion. "This cafe is not just a dream come true. It's a love story with many chapters. It's about a grandmother who taught her granddaughter how to transform simple ingredients into magical moments. It's about a restaurant that was so much more than a place to work. It's about a woman who, even though she left us too soon, left so much love in the form of words that it continued to bring people together." She paused, her eyes finding Leo and Sophia in the crowd. "It's about a special girl who sees colors in flavors and music in smells. About a man who believed in my dreams as much as I did. It's about family, the one we're born into and the one we choose to build." Sophia ran to the stage at that moment, handing Clara an envelope decorated with colorful drawings. "So you can open it now," the girl said, bouncing with excitement. Inside the envelope was a drawing, the cafe seen from outside, with 3 figures holding hands at the door, Clara, Leo, and Sophia. But there was also a 4th figure, drawn with softer, almost transparent lines, smiling from the sky. Marina watching over her extended family. "The name of the cafe is Memories and Flavors," Clara continued, holding the drawing fondly, "because I believe that every cup of coffee, every slice of cake, every moment shared here will be part of a bigger story. A story about new beginnings, about unlikely encounters, about love in all its forms." The official opening of Memories and Flavors to the public exceeded all expectations. From the early hours of the morning, a line formed on the sidewalk, attracting curious people and former customers of Antica Cucina who were eagerly waiting to see the new establishment. Clara looked radiant in her custom apron, a special gift from Sophia that had tiny flowers of the valley embroidered on the edges. The little girl insisted on wearing a matching apron, determined to help out in any way she could during the opening. "Remember our first Sunday at the restaurant?" Sophia asked as she helped arrange the books on the tables. "When I gave you that bouquet of flowers? It seems so long ago now." Clara smiled, adjusting a loose strand of the girl's hair. "It really does. Who would have thought that bouquet would change our lives forever?" The cafe quickly became lively and full of conversation. The aroma of freshly baked bread and freshly brewed coffee mingled with the gentle scent of fresh flowers that decorated the space. On the main wall, the mosaic of photographs and Sophia's special painting attracted the attention of visitors who stopped to admire the story told there. Leo walked around the tables, chatting with customers and occasionally giving Clara and Sophia a loving look. He had decided to take a few days off from the real estate agency to help with the opening, temporarily delegating his responsibilities to dedicate himself entirely to this special moment. The food critic who had promised the report was present, discreetly making notes in his notebook while sipping the famous apple and cinnamon tea. His eyes lit up when he tasted Clara's new creation, a cake she had named Memorias do Vale, inspired by her grandmother's old recipes with a contemporary twist. In the late afternoon, when the movement began to die down, a special group of visitors arrived. They were residents of Val das Flores, who had made the trip especially for the inauguration after hearing the news through relatives. "Donna Clara," exclaimed an elderly lady, her eyes brimming with tears. "You look just like your grandmother Rosa. She would be so proud." Among the visitors was also the former baker who had worked with Donna Rosa, now retired. He brought with him a precious gift, a handwritten notebook with some of the original recipes from the bakery that Clara loved so much in her childhood. "Your grandmother gave this to me before she left," he explained, handing over the notebook. "Carefully. She said that one day he would find his true home. I guess that day has come." Clara leafed through the yellowed pages with reverence, recognizing her grandmother's neat handwriting. Among the recipes, she found small personal notes, life advice, and even a letter addressed to her, which had never been delivered. "My dear granddaughter," the letter read, "if you are reading this, it means that you have followed your heart and found your way in the kitchen. Always remember, the secret is not only in the ingredients, but in the love that we put into each preparation. Continue spreading happiness through flavors, as you have always done since you were little." Sophia, who had approached silently, hugged Clara around the waist. "See? Now we have special letters from Grandma Rosa, too. We can frame some of them." Next to Mom's, Leo joined them, bringing 3 cups of Clara's special tea. "To celebrate," he said, handing out the cups. "After all, it's not every day that so many dreams come true at once." As they sipped their tea, watching the movement of the cafe and the people who were still admiring the photographs and trying the special recipes, Clara felt a deep certainty in her heart. There, among aromas, flavors, and memories, she had found much more than a space to realize her professional dreams. She had found her true home. The weeks that followed the opening brought a hectic but deeply rewarding routine. Memories and flavors quickly became a beloved meeting place in the city, attracting not only those in search of good food, but also people looking for a place to share their own stories. Clara implemented a special idea. Each table had a small notebook where customers could record their memories and stories related to food. Over time, these notebooks became true treasures of personal narratives, family recipes, and unforgettable moments. On a particularly busy morning, Sophia arrived home from school earlier than usual, carrying her science project, a paper on synesthesia and how different people experience flavors and aromas. "Can I do a survey here at the cafe?" she asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "I want to know if other people also see colors when they taste your special tea." Clara couldn't help but smile at the girl's scientific interest. "Of course you can. Let's create a special corner for your research." Soon one of the tables near the window became a small makeshift laboratory. Sophia, wearing a miniature lab coat that Clara had made especially for her, interviewed customers about their sensory experiences as they tasted different coffee recipes. Leo, who had spent the morning in important meetings at the real estate agency, arrived in time to see his daughter presenting the first results of her research to a group of interested clients. "Did you know that 70% of people said that Clara's tea is the color of a hug?" Sophia explained excitedly. "And 85% said that the cinnamon cake reminds them of happy childhood memories." "That's fascinating, my love," Leo commented, kissing the top of his daughter's head. Turning to Clara, he whispered, "She's becoming more and more like you every day, you know, that way of transforming food into something magical." That afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the cafe in golden hues, a special surprise awaited Clara. The food critic who had attended the opening returned, bringing with him the advance edition of the magazine with his report. "I wanted you to be the first to read it," he said, handing over the magazine with a smile. The article, titled "Flavors That Tell Stories," took up 4 full pages. The photographs perfectly captured the essence of the cafe, the mosaic of memories on the wall, customers sharing stories about the recipes, Sophia in her little apron helping to serve the special tea. But it was the last paragraph that made Clara emotional. "Memories and Flavors is more than just a coffee shop. It is a living testament to how love can manifest itself through gastronomy. In every cup of tea, in every slice of cake, we find not only exceptional flavors, but also life stories, dreams come true, and proof that some places have the magical power to make us feel at home." Leo, who had been reading over Clara's shoulder, hugged her from behind. "He captured the essence of the place perfectly," he commented, his soft voice close to her ear. Sophia, who had finished her research for the day, joined in the hug. "Can I add one more scientific discovery?" she asked with a mischievous smile. "I discovered that love tastes like apple cinnamon tea and the color of a sunset." Clara laughed, hugging her family even tighter. There, amidst the aromas of fresh coffee and shared stories, she was certain her own story was just beginning, and each new chapter would be sweeter than the last. The success of Memories and Flavors brought an unexpected surprise one autumn morning. A television producer had become interested in the history of coffee after reading the report by the food critic and wanted to make a documentary about establishments that mixed gastronomy with personal stories. "They want to film a special episode here," Sophia announced excitedly after answering the phone in the cafe while Clara prepared a batch of cookies. "They said our story is perfect for the show." Clara was hesitant at first. Her private nature made her think twice about going public. But when she saw the excitement in Sophia's eyes and Leo's encouraging smile, she realized that perhaps it was time to share her story with more people. "On one condition," she said, adjusting her flowered apron. "We'll do it our way, keeping the essence of what we've built here." The film crew arrived on a quiet Wednesday. The producer, an elegant lady named Helena, was enchanted by the atmosphere of the place. "There's something special here," she said, observing the customers absorbed in their reading and conversation. "An energy you don't find anywhere else." Sophia naturally took on the role of guide, leading the team through the cafe and explaining every detail with the skill of someone who knew every inch of the space. She stopped in front of the wall of photographs, her eyes shining as she told them about her mother's letters and how they had magically connected past and present. "And here," she pointed to a recent photograph, "is when we discovered Grandma Rosa's recipe book. Just look at how amazing fate is. Both Mom and Grandma left special letters for us to find at just the right time." During filming, regular customers shared their own stories about the cafe. One elderly woman told how the apple and cinnamon tea reminded her of her childhood in the countryside. A young writer revealed that his first novel was written entirely there, inspired by the aromas and stories that wafted through the air. The most exciting moment, however, happened when a special group of visitors arrived without warning. They were more residents of Val das Flores, including former customers of Donna Rosa's bakery. Among them was Donna Celine, who had been both Clara's and Marina's childhood teacher. "I couldn't miss this," said the former teacher, her eyes brimming with emotion. "Did you know that Marina and Clara were partners in a school project about aromatic herbs? They made a beautiful book about teas from the valley. At the time, we had no idea how significant that would be in the future." Clara and Leo exchanged surprised glances. It was yet another connection they were discovering between their stories. Sophia, who was filming everything with her own cell phone, captured the exact moment her parents clasped hands, moved by the revelation. The film crew was especially touched when Sophia showed off her latest creation, a special corner of the cafe dedicated to children, where they could draw their own stories and feelings about the flavors they tasted. "Because everyone has a story to tell," Sophia explained with the wisdom that only children possess. "Sometimes we just need a special place to share it." At the end of the day, when the cameras had been turned off, Helena, the producer, approached Clara with tears in her eyes. "You know," she began, her voice breaking, "I came here thinking I would do just another episode about a charming cafe. But I found something much bigger, a story about how love can come in many different flavors and how life has mysterious ways of bringing people together." Clara poured a final round of tea for the crew using the antique copper kettle that Mr. Antonelli had given her. As the familiar scent of apples and cinnamon filled the air, she watched her family, Leo sorting books on the shelves, Sophia showing the film crew her research notebook, and felt her heart swell with gratitude. The documentary screening was scheduled for a special evening, and Clara decided to turn the event into a celebration at the cafe. The tables were rearranged to accommodate a small projection screen, and Sophia insisted on creating a special themed menu for the occasion. "Each dish will tell a part of our story," the girl explained, showing her planning notebook. "Clara's special tea, the cookies that remind us of Grandma Rosa's bakery, and look, I created a new dessert that combines recipes from both families." Leo watched his daughter with pride, admiring how she had inherited not only Clara's creativity in the kitchen, but also her ability to turn moments into special memories. The afternoon before the screening, while they were organizing the last details, Clara found Sophia sitting on the back stairs of the cafe, leafing through an album of old photographs. "What have you got there, dear?" Clara asked, sitting down beside her. "They're pictures of Mommy," Sophia replied, her voice soft. "Look at this one. She's in the Valley of Flowers in front of Grandma Rosa's bakery. And she was the same age as I am now." Clara picked up the photograph carefully. In it, a young Marina was smiling in front of the old bakery, her eyes bright and dreamy. It was amazing how Sophia had the same smile. "You know what?" Sophia continued, leaning against Clara's shoulder. "Sometimes I think Mom planned all this. In her letters, she always talked about finding the right place for love to grow. And look at that. She chose Dad, who came from the same place. As you, who made the same special tea she loved." Clara hugged Sophia, feeling her heart fill with emotion. "Your mother was truly special," she whispered. "And you, my love, have a little bit of her and a little bit of all of us." The night of the screening arrived, bringing with it a special energy. The cafe was packed with a mix of regulars, friends, family, and even some Valley residents who had returned for the event. Mr. Antonelli and his wife occupied a special table, along with the old Antica Cucina staff. When the lights went down and the documentary began, a respectful silence fell over the room. On the screen, the story of the cafe unfolded like a modern fairy tale. The young cook with a dream kept in a secret notebook, the girl who saw colors. In flavors, the father who learned to believe in love again. Marina's letters were brought to life through delicate animations, her words dancing across the screen like petals in the wind. Donna Rosa's recipes were presented with the same care, showing how different generations could connect through a love of cooking. Sophia was radiant in her scenes, fluently explaining her research into synesthesia and how the cafe had become a place where people could share not only meals, but also their most intimate stories. At the end of the documentary, a surprise awaited. Everyone, Sophia had secretly recorded a special statement. "Some people think that family is only about people who share the same blood," her sweet voice echoed through the room. "But I've learned that family is about those who make your heart warm, like Clara's special tea. Those who cherish your stories, like Mom's letters. Those who believe in your dreams, like Dad. And sometimes, when we're really lucky, we gain an even bigger family, full of people who also believe in magic and new beginnings." Clara felt Leo's arms wrap around her from behind, while Sophia snuggled between them. On the screen, images of the lively cafe mixed with old photographs of the Valley of Flowers, creating a bridge between past and present, between memories and dreams, between different types of love that met at the right time. The success of the documentary brought a wave of visitors to Memories and Flavors. People from different cities began to show up, each bringing their own stories and memories to share. Clara realized that she needed to expand the cafe space, and that's when Leo came up with a surprising idea. "The building next door is for sale," he said over family breakfast. "We could create a connection between the two spaces. Imagine a dedicated cooking area where people can learn the Valley's special recipes." Sophia's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "We could start a school for little chefs," she exclaimed, already scribbling ideas in her notebook, "and I could be the first student." Clara felt her heart race at the possibilities. The idea of passing on the knowledge she had received from her grandmother, of creating a space where others could discover the magic of transforming ingredients into memories. It was as if a new chapter of her dream was opening. The following weeks were a whirlwind of planning and preparation. The expansion project began to take shape, with Leo personally overseeing every detail of the renovation. Sophia, in turn, took on the task of creating a special program for the children's classes. On a particularly busy afternoon, while organizing the last recipes for the inaugural course, Clara found something special among the pages of her grandmother's old notebook, a yellowed photograph showing Donna Rosa giving pastry lessons to a group of children. "Look at this," she showed the photo to Leo and Sophia. "My grandmother also had a cooking school in the valley. How did I never know about this?" "Wait a minute," Sophia exclaimed, running to get Marina's photo album. After a few pages of hasty leafing through, she found what she was looking for, a photograph of her mother as a child, taking part in one of Donna Rosa's classes. "Isn't it amazing?" Sophia whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's like all our paths have been connected forever." Leo hugged them both, looking at the photographs with emotion. "Do you know what this means?" The new space will not just be an expansion of the cafe. It will be the continuation of a story that began a long time ago in the valley. On the morning of the inauguration of the new space, a surprise awaited Clara. The former baker who had worked with her grandmother appeared accompanied by a special group. Former students from Donna Rosa's classes, now adults, many of them with children of their own. "We're here for the first class," he announced, smiling. After all, some traditions are worth keeping alive. The new space was named School of Flavors and Memories, and its first class was a perfect mix of generations. Children eager to learn the secrets of cooking, adults who carried memories of Donna Rosa's classes, and even some former customers of Antica Cucina. Sophia, wearing her personalized apron and a small chef's hat, helped Clara organize the students at their workstations. The first recipe to be taught, of course, would be the famous apple and cinnamon tea. "Before we begin," Clara said, her voice choked with emotion, "I want to share something with you. This is not just a cooking class. It is a celebration of stories, of memories, of loves that span generations. Each recipe we will teach here carries a little of the soul of the Valley of Flowers, a little of the heart of each person who has been part of this journey." As she spoke, Clara noticed a gentle movement near the window. The curtains were swaying in the morning breeze, bringing the scent of the flowers from the valley that had been planted in the small vertical garden. For a moment, she could have sworn she saw her grandmother's smile reflected in the glass, mingling with Marina's, as if they were both there, blessing this new beginning. The first class of the School of Flavors and Memories was an absolute success. The classes quickly turned into special gatherings where stories were shared along with the recipes. Sophia, who actively participated in all the activities, began collecting the students' stories in a new notebook. "Every recipe has a different story for each person," she explained to the new students. "That's why we created the Book of Taste Memories, to save all these special stories." On a particularly busy morning, as Clara was preparing the kitchen for yet another class, Leo arrived with a mysterious expression on his face. "I have a surprise for you two," he announced, handing Clara an envelope. "Open it." Inside the envelope were tickets to the Valley of Flowers. "I thought we could spend a weekend there," he explained. "Sophia has never been there, and we have so many stories that started there." Clara felt her heart race. She hadn't been back to the valley since she left as a teenager after her grandmother left. Sophia, who had heard the conversation, was already jumping for joy. "Will we be able to see the old bakery, and the school where Mom studied, and the garden where the special flowers grow?" The weekend arrived quickly. As the car entered the outskirts of the Valley of Flowers, Clara felt as if she had gone back in time. The air had the same sweet scent she remembered, and the mountains, in the background, seemed to embrace the small village just as they had before. The old bakery, although closed for years, still had the colorful stained glass windows. Sophia ran to the door, pressing her face against the glass to try to see inside. "Look, Clara," she called excitedly. "The old oven is still there, and that wooden counter. It looks just like the pictures." Leo walked over to Clara, who was watching the scene with tears in her eyes. "You know," he began, his voice soft, "I've been thinking, what if we brought a little more of the valley into our lives?" Clara looked at him, intrigued. Leo continued, "What do you think about having our wedding here? We could restore the bakery for the celebration. It would be a perfect way to honor all the stories that have brought us to this moment." Before Clara could answer, Sophia let out a little cry of joy. "It would be perfect. We could decorate everything with flowers from the valley and serve all the special recipes, and we could do something even more special," Clara added, an idea taking shape in her mind. "What if after the wedding we turned the bakery into a branch of the cafe, a place where the stories of the valley can continue to be told?" Leo's eyes lit up at the suggestion. The first branch of Memories and Flavors, returning to the Fae. Origins. Sophia, who had sat on the steps at the bakery's entrance, opened her inseparable sketchbook. "I know. We can call it Memories and Flavors, where it all began. And look," she showed a drawing she had just made, representing the renovated bakery, with tables on the sidewalk and flowers everywhere. At that moment, a gentle breeze blew, bringing petals from the flowers of the valley. Clara closed her eyes, inhaling the familiar scent. It was as if the place itself was approving of her plans, as if all the stories that had begun there, her grandmother's, Marina's, her own, were intertwining into a new chapter. Leo hugged Clara from behind as they watched Sophia run around the garden, collecting flowers for her scrapbook. "Sometimes," he whispered, "endings are just new beginnings in disguise." Clara smiled, leaning back into his embrace. There, in the place where it all began, she could feel all the pieces falling into place perfectly. The Valley of Flowers, which had once been the setting for so many goodbyes, was now preparing to be the stage for a new story of love, unity, and new beginnings. The months leading up to the wedding passed in the blink of an eye. The old bakery in the Valley of Flowers was given a new lease of life under the watchful eye of Leo and Clara. The walls were painted, the oven restored, and the stained glass windows cleaned until they shone like new. Sophia oversaw every detail of the renovation with the same enthusiasm she dedicated to her research into synesthesia. "Every corner needs to tell a story," she insisted, carrying her planning notebook. "Everywhere. Like our local cafe." News of the wedding and the new branch of Memories and Flavors spread quickly throughout the valley. Older residents began to bring photographs and souvenirs from the time of Donna Rosa's bakery, contributing to the collection of memories that would be displayed at the location. A week before the wedding, Clara found Sophia sitting at the old bakery counter, absorbed in something she was writing. "What are you doing, dear?" he asked, sitting down next to the girl. "I'm writing a letter," Sophia replied, without taking her eyes off the paper. "Like Mom used to do. That way one day other people will find it and know our story." Clara peeked over Sophia's shoulder and felt her heart melt as she read the first few lines. "Dear future, today I'm going to tell you the story of how love tastes like apple tea with cinnamon and the color of a sunset. It's a story about 3 magical places, a restaurant where it all began, a cafe where dreams came true, and an old bakery that held all these secrets waiting for us to discover." On the eve of the wedding, the valley was unrecognizable. The streets were decorated with lanterns and flowers, and the aroma of bread and sweets filled the air. Clara had invited her students from the School of Flavors and Memories to help with the preparations for the party. Mr. Antonelli and his wife arrived early, bringing the antique copper kettle that would now occupy a place of honor in the new location. The Antica Cucina team came in force, transforming the bakery's kitchen into a joyful gathering of generations of cooks. On the morning of the wedding, as she was getting ready, Clara received a touching surprise. Helena, the documentary's producer, had put together a special compilation of testimonials, messages from cafe customers, culinary school students, and locals from the valley, all sharing how their lives had been touched by the love story that began with a special cup of tea. "Here's for you to show off at the party," Helena explained, handing over the ribbon-decorated flash drive, "because some stories are so beautiful that they need to be told in every possible way." Sophia, who was helping Clara with the final details of her dress, had her own special plans for the ceremony. She had prepared a surprise that she had kept secret for weeks, sharing only knowing smiles with Leo when the subject came up. The chosen location for the ceremony was the garden behind the bakery, where the flowers of the valley grew in abundance. Rows of white chairs were arranged between the flower beds, and an arch covered in flowers marked the altar. Marina's old music box was strategically positioned, ready to play at the right moment. When Clara finally emerged from the bakery in her white dress with lace trim, it was Sophia who led her down the petal path. The little girl wore a dress that matched the bride's and carried a small basket of flowers from the valley. Leo waited at the altar, his eyes shining with excitement as he watched his 2 favorite women walking toward him. The late afternoon sun painted everything with golden hues, creating exactly the scene that Sophia always described when talking about the taste of love. It was then that Sophia's surprise was revealed. Before the ceremony formally began, she asked to speak. From her dress, she took out a carefully folded piece of paper. It was the letter she had written days before, but now with a special addendum. With a clear and emotional voice, Sophia began to read her letter to everyone present. Dear Mommy in heaven, today is a very special day. Remember when you wrote in your letters that one day someone with gentle hands and a strong soul would come to take care of me and Daddy? You were right. Clara arrived with her magical tea and her heart full of love, and now our family is complete in a different and special way. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden as Sophia continued. But do you know what's most incredible? You also helped Clara realize her dream. The cafe she always wanted to have now exists, and it's full of love stories, including yours. And today, here in the Valley of Flowers, where it all began, we are writing another chapter in that story. Clara and Leo, holding hands at the altar, smiled through their tears as their little girl continued, "So this letter is to say thank you. To thank you, Mummy, for leaving us so much love in your letters. To thank Grandma Rosa for teaching Clara how to make the most special tea in the world. And to thank fate, which brought all these little pieces of love together in one story." After Sophia's reading, the ceremony unfolded like a dream. The old music box played softly, blending with the sound of the wind in the flowers of the valley. The vows were exchanged with simple but profound words, words that spoke of unlikely encounters, of second chances, of love that is born in the most unexpected places. The party that followed was a celebration not only of Clara and Leo's love, but of all the stories that had brought them together. Tables were set up both inside the renovated bakery and in the garden, each decorated with flowers from the valley, and small cards telling different chapters of their story. The menu was a tribute to all the memories. Donna Rosa's recipes, favorite. Dishes from Antica Cucina, the special creations from Memories and Flavors, and of course the famous apple and cinnamon tea served in the old copper kettle. During the party, the surprise video prepared by Helena was displayed on the bakery wall. Messages of love and gratitude from customers, friends, and family were mixed with images from the documentary, creating an emotional mosaic of shared memories. Sophia walked around the guests with her notebook, collecting new stories and impressions. "I'm making a special book," she explained, "to keep all the memories of this day." As night fell, lanterns were lit in the garden, creating a magical atmosphere. Clara and Leo danced their first waltz to the music box, while Sophia watched, sitting on the bakery steps drawing the moment in her notebook. It was then that something magical happened. A gentle breeze blew through the garden, carrying petals from the flowers of the valley. For a moment, it seemed as if the aroma of fresh bread from Rosa's bakery mingled with the scent of the flowers that Marina loved so much, as if past and present had merged into a single celebration of love. Clara, dancing in Leo's arms, looked at Sophia and saw her daughter smiling, her eyes shining with happiness. In that moment, she understood that some stories don't really have an ending. They just change, grow, and continue to blossom in different ways. And there in the Valley of Flowers, where it all began, a new story was just beginning. Memories and Flavors, where everything began, would open its doors the following week, ready to welcome new stories, new loves, new memories. Sophia closed her storybook and ran to join her parents in the dance. And as the family twirled under the stars, the scent of apple and cinnamon tea hung in the air, reminding everyone that love, like the best recipes, is made of memories, care, and a touch of magic.